when we look at the Houston Texans, when we watch the Houston Texans, we seem to forget that, they're actually a pretty good team, right? Right? When we look at the Houston Texans, we saw a 2-game losing streak. We saw them give away the game to the Detroit Lions last week, week 10, in the second half. Literally say, here, take this game. We don't want it. We know Jared Goff's got five interceptions, but you know what? We don't want to win the game. Now, we all know that the Texans right now are winning a bad division. They are in first place of the AFC South. I know we got some we got some Dolphins fans here. We got some Jaguars fans here, and we got a few Colts fans, my man Frank, right? But let's just be honest. The AFC South is one of the worst divisions in football, hands down. Now, the Texans snapped their 2-game losing streak last night when they did beat the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football. They all seem to have fourth place all but locked up in the AFC playoff race. But we got to ask the question. We've seen it with our own eyes, but we got to ask the question. Are the Texans the real deal? Are the Houston Texans a team that can win 2 playoff games? Are the Houston Texans a team that can potentially challenge the Chiefs, challenge the Ravens, challenge the Steelers, the Buffalo Bills in that Super Bowl conversation in the AFC? Are the Houston Texans the real deal? Like I said, the Houston Texans are winning a bad division right now. The Colts are trying to lose, and they can't do it very well, but they're trying to lose. The Jaguars and Titans get blown out week after week after week. They're just bad, right? And when you look at the Texans' schedule moving forward, guess who they play? They play the Titans. Bad. They play the Jaguars. Bad. They play the Miami Dolphins. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the Dolphins are. Then they got to do a couple tests, right? They got the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium, and they're back home on Christmas Day, taking on the Baltimore Ravens. But then they end the season versus a bad team in the Houston Texans. So far this season, the Houston Texans have played 3 playoff teams. They played 3 playoff teams so far this season. They're 1-2. Their lone win versus those playoff teams coming over the Buffalo Bills, 23-20. This is when the Buffalo Bills were kind of hot garbage. Let's just be honest. They were not very good. They were on a 2-game losing streak, got whacked by the Baltimore Ravens, and then they come back and they battle against the Texans, right? Stephon Diggs, old game, whatever, yada, yada, yada. That whole game, right? And then they gave the game away to the Detroit Lions, as we talked about, and then they got beat down by the Minnesota Vikings, 34-7. Like I said, they do play 2 good tests coming up. Kind of, right? They play the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead and the Baltimore Ravens in 4 days. This is a real fake test. Let's just be honest. This is a practice test. This is a game, or these are 2 games that are going to be matter of much of nothing, right? Because the Kansas City Chiefs are playing 3 games in 15 days. The Baltimore Ravens playing 3 games in 15 days. The Houston Texans playing 3 games in 15 days. This is a real fake test. It's going to be a vanilla offense, a vanilla defense for both of these games. Not really a real test for either stretch of the imagination. I guess you can kind of chalk up the Kansas City Chiefs as being a, quote, real test because they will be that Saturday game. But the Ravens, 4 days rest. It's going to be worse than a Thursday night game. Let's just be honest. Hello, vanilla defense. Hello, vanilla offense. Terrible. So we got to ask the question, are the Houston Texans the real deal? Are the Houston Texans a team that can come in there and ram it up your pie hole? No, they're not. No, they're not. The Houston Texans have some flaws. The Houston Texans have their flaws. Their defense, not so great. I love me some Danielle Hunter. I think he's the X factor on this team, but the rest of that defense has really not been living up to their hype. I understand they had very, very thin defensive front last night. I understand that they had a very, very thin defense in general. But the simple fact of the matter is everybody's dealing with injuries. There's always the next man up. The Detroit Lions, they lose Hutch, next man up. They lose their linebacker, white-haired, long-haired boy. He is out with the broken arm, 6 to 8 weeks. Next man up. The Kansas City Chiefs, receivers out. Next man up. It's always the next man up. So no excuses for that. And then on the offensive side of the ball, Nico Collins is finally back. Nico Collins is the dog. Let's just be honest. But I don't see how the Texans can compete with anybody in the AFC playoff race. When you look at the playoffs right now, you have the Chiefs, you have the Buffalo Bills, you have the Steelers, you have the Texans, you have the Ravens, you have the Chargers, you have the Broncos. Give me one team that the Houston Texans can beat. Give me one, legitimately. As a 4th seed and a 5th seed, right now, they would be playing the LA Chargers. Are they going to beat the LA Chargers? Hell no. The Chargers got the defense. The Chargers got the attitude. The Chargers got that running game. Slam, bam, thank you, man. Come back again for seconds. Because we'll give it to you. The Denver Broncos, the same thing. They got the defense. They got an offense that's getting better, that doesn't suck. They cannot compete with the Denver Broncos. I'm just saying it. Don't kill the messenger. I'm just seeing it how I see it. Can they beat the Baltimore Ravens? They showed it last year that they can't. Now, maybe it's a home game. Maybe no, it's not going to happen. It's going to be another freaking blowout. Let's just be honest. The Houston Texans are not the real deal. They're going to win the playoffs. They're going to win the division by default because the Colts suck. The Jaguars suck. The Titans suck. That's what it comes down to, is a terrible division making it into the playoffs. They're 1-2 versus playoff teams. The lone team they beat, the Buffalo Bills. Congratulations. Boy, were the Buffalo Bills playing some great football back in week 4, I'll tell you what, or week 5, whatever it was. The Buffalo Bills were hot garbage. They were terrible, and they sucked week 5. Let's call a spade a spade. The Buffalo Bills sucked week 5. Week 4, week 5, hell, week 6, they sucked. Since then, they turned it around. People were like, oh, they beat the Buffalo Bills. Yeah. But you gave it away to the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions literally gave it to you on a platter. They left the room. They left the room 2 weeks later. They come back. There's mold starting to grow on the platter. And the Texans are like, I don't want this. I don't want this win. And the Detroit's like, fine. If you're going to give it to us, I guess we'll do it, right? Like, the Texans are terrible, guys. The Texans are terrible. Give me one team that they can beat in the playoffs if the playoffs were to start today. If the playoffs were to start today, the number 1 seed would be the Kansas City Chiefs. The number 2 seed would be the Buffalo Bills. The number 3 seed would be the Pittsburgh Steelers. The number 4 seed would be the Houston Texans. The number 5 seed, I believe, would be the LA Chargers. I'm confirming that right now. The number 6 seed would be the Baltimore Ravens. And then the number 7 seed would be the Denver Broncos. Do you guys legitimately see the Houston Texans beating the LA Chargers in wild card round? Legitimately. Let's be honest. Head-to-head competition starts right now. Do the Houston Texans beat the LA Chargers? I am picking the LA Chargers. Let's say somehow, some way, the Ravens jump up to the 5th seed. Are they beating the Ravens? Absolutely not. Let's say the Steelers drop down to the 5 seed. Are they beating the Steelers? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Let's just say, in this crazy hypothetical world that we live in, the Denver Broncos run the table. The Denver Broncos run the table, and they get first in the AFC West, and the Kansas City Chiefs drop, let's say, 3 or 4 of their next 6, dropping them down to the 5th seed. Are they beating the Kansas City Chiefs? No, they're not. So, guys, the question is, are the Houston Texans a valid team to root for? Did we forget about them, or are they hot garbage? Let's just call it a spade a spade. Respade the spade. James Frank says, remember that comment I made a few days ago about CJ? Yep, he's still him. He will have a few growing pains, but he'll be great for years to come. And this is not a dog on CJ Stroud. And I guess you can kind of take it as a dog of the Houston Texans team, right? But the simple fact of the matter is like, they are not living up to hype last season. I understand 2023, they had a 4th place schedule. I understand that. This year, they have a 1st place schedule. I get that. That is why I actually had the Texans being a team that would go from 1st to last, was because of their schedule. Now, the schedule now doesn't look that daunting because of things that have happened, right? But the simple fact of the matter is the Texans are not as good as we thought they were. Growing pains or not, the Texans are not as good as we thought they were. And the AFC in general is better than we thought it was. Who saw the Chargers coming up? Who saw the Broncos coming up? Hell, let's say the Colts slide in there. Can the Texans legitimately beat a team 3 times in a season? No, they can't. I'm more scared of the Colts in the playoffs than I am the Texans. I'm more scared of the Dolphins and Bengals in the playoffs than I are the Texans. Hell, I'm more scared of the Jets in the playoffs than I am the Texans. It is what it is, right? And yes, the Jets still have a 2% chance to make the playoffs, so I'm not shooting shit, but they can still make it. They can still make it. And Derek, my man, says, I'm not sure CJ is ready for the big stage. And playing at Ohio State, you were on the big stage a lot. You were on that big stage a lot, and you get people's best punches all the time, Derek. I have several players right now that are playing for Ohio State, right? And they get team's best shot week after week, game after game, right? Hell, even in practice, people are giving them best shots, right? Like, hey, I'm on Ohio State's backup team, and I want to be a starter. They're getting their best shot day after day after day. So to say that CJ Stroud isn't ready for the big stage, I tend to disagree with that. I tend to disagree that the team, I can agree that the team in general may not be ready for the big stage, meaning they're not ready to beat teams like the Ravens, like the Steelers, like the Chiefs, like the Buffalo Bills, like the Chargers. They're just not there yet mentally as a team to beat there. CJ Stroud could put the team on his back and could lead them, but I just don't think the team is ready to follow. James says, I think the biggest thing for the Texans will do good until they have outside up north playoffs. So basically, James is saying they will win a wild card game. In that dome stadium, at NRG Stadium, the dome's going to be closed because, in Houston, in January, it gets like 65 degrees and people freak out that it's freaking cold here, right? Even though here in Indiana, it's like 30 degrees snowing outside. But hey, we're not complaining. He says the Chargers coming to town, the Ravens coming to town, the Broncos coming to town, or the Steelers coming to town. They're going to win that game because they're inside. But you put them outside in Buffalo, you put them outside in Pittsburgh, in Baltimore, and Kansas City, game over. Many people are saying that about the Lions too, right? You get the Lions outside in the elements, it's game over. However, it did prove against the Packers that they can play in the rain. So it is. My man Jay's in the chat. Speaking of Lions, what's up, Jay? He says, game wasn't a big of a blowout as the Lions put on them. Game wasn't a big of a blowout as the Lions put on them. I don't think the Lions versus Texans was a blowout by any stretch of the imagination, right? The Lions tried to give them the game, and the Texans played flawless football in the first half. I actually come out and said, if the Texans play like that in the first half all game long, they could be a Super Bowl caliber team, but they proved that they can't. Let's just be honest. They proved that they can't. Sweet Caroline's in the chat. She says, hey, what's up, Caroline? Hope you're having a grand old day. Grand old day. She's a mule from Central Missouri. Central Missouri Mules there. James Frank says, playoff this year? Nope. I was sold on them till a few weeks ago. So, James, what? So, basically what James is saying, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, he was all on the Houston Texans bandwagon. He was buying everything they were taking. They were shoving it down his throat, and he was loving every minute of it. So, James, what changed to make you not buy the Houston Texans? Was it the 2-game losing streak? Was it the sack rate of like 6%? Or like, what was it? What turned you off from the Houston Texans? I'm curious about that. Caroline says, how about them Broncos walking all over the Falcons? It was pretty nice. Pretty nice. Caroline's tuned into the Power Ranks tonight at 9 p.m. East Coast time, and we'll be talking about those Broncos. We will be talking about the Broncos. Purple Evra. I'm not saying your name right, but it's Purple with the V and Evra with the B. Purple forever. Says to beat the Bills, they are annoying. Why are the Bills annoying? I mean, the Bills have every right to be hyped. Just like the Baltimore Ravens have every reason to be hyped right now. They're regular season champions. They won the Super Bowl week 11, Purple. Come on. We know the Buffalo Bills are going to be cloud 9. Hell 9. Caroline says, hell yeah, I love how you said that about my team because it's so true. Caroline's the Not sure. Who is your team, Caroline? Is it the Bills? The Bills are in a trash division. They are. AFC West is pretty trash. James Frank says Chargers defense is tough, but that's a no. They're not beating the Chargers. So James says the Chargers defense is good, but they're not beating the Houston Texans. So slow it down, baby. Slow it down. Okay, James, I see you, big guy. Heather James says big shot they would have against the best shot they have would be against the Ravens and Lamar, because Lamar in the playoffs, baby. Don't say that too loud, because Ravens fans will get mad. Lamar Jackson fans will get mad. But you might be right. You might be right, James. You might be mad. Kevin Cummings with a 3-year anniversary follower. He's been following us since day one. What's up, Kevin? He says the Texans are a good team, just not a great team. And that is kind of my point of this whole situation, Kevin, is like, yes, the Texans are a team that can win some games. The Texans remind me of the Miami Dolphins. They beat bad teams and they lose to good teams. That doesn't mean they're terrible. That doesn't mean they're great. They're just a nice middle-of-the-road team. They're a middle-of-the-road team that's going to make the playoffs. It's going to be a first-round exit. It is what it is. Terry Fuller's in the chat over from YouTube. What's up, Terry? He says, depend on who's during the playoffs. Who's hot during the playoffs? And it's actually right. Honestly, that is why the AFC playoff picture is so wide open. It's because it is all about who is going to get hot at the right time. Have the Buffalo Bills peaked, right? Are the Chargers peaked? Are the Denver Broncos going to come and roar in hot and blow their load before week 18, right? Are the Ravens just on their incline? It's all about who is clicking at the right time come week 19 of the NFL season. Terry, you are exactly right. You are exactly right. If the Texans can play like they did versus the Detroit Lions in the first half for a complete game for all playoffs, they could be Super Bowl contenders, but I don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening. Bo Nix is Rookie of the Year material, but he won't make it. Sorry, Caroline, he won't make it. Kevin says Dolphins and Jets are making the playoffs. I don't care if they're mathematically eliminated. They eliminated them themselves in September. Listen, the Jets are done, right? The Jets are completely done. But the Dolphins, they have some winnable games ahead of them. They could get hot. They have one of the easiest remaining schedules. So let's not sleep on the Dolphins. It would be bad for them to make it. Let's just be honest. Hell, it'd be bad for the Broncos to make it. It'd be bad for the Colts to make it. It'd be bad for the Bengals to make it. But somebody's got to make it. Texans started losing when the injuries started piling up. This is true. Once Nico Collins went down, which now he is back after being 5 weeks off, right? He has definitely come back I think he will be the X factor for this team moving forward. But the Stephon Diggs injury was what really hurt them. So missing Stephon Diggs sucks, right? Right? The rain ain't no snow. True. I would much rather play in the snow, though. I'm just saying. Gravity Crush over there on youtube.com/Banner says, what's up? Texans are in a pretty bad division, to be honest. So they are competitive to make the playoffs and easy comparing to other city playoff teams. They are Gravity Crush. It is pretty much a lock that the Houston Texans win the AFC South. They have a 98% chance of making it to the playoffs right now, right? So basically, they would have to lose the rest of their games, and the Indianapolis Colts would have to win the rest of their games for there to be a tiebreaker, and then the Colts would potentially get the tiebreaker. So, it's pretty much a lock that they'll make the playoffs. Kevin Cummings says the Texans inability to live up to the next man up mentality is what gave up on them. True. I will agree with that. Broncos, when you said about the defense and offense, says Caroline, we're not talking about the Broncos right now, but we will talk about the Broncos. We will talk about your Broncos. So stay tuned for that. James James says, my wife is a Ravens fan, and I have to hear her say every Sunday how great Lamar Jackson is. Get out of here. James Frank says, them handing the game to the Lions. So James Frank was buying the Houston Texans. We were talking about this about 3-4 minutes ago. James Frank was buying the Houston Texans, but what sold him is when he gave the games to the Lions. They won't be good in the playoffs because that's what will happen, is they will give them the game away. They could be the Chargers back in 2021. 27-point lead over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Are going to come back and give it away. It is what it is. Jameson Jackson's in the chat. What's up, Jameson? He says, my picks this season so far are 128 and 46, 72%. I'm gravy. Congratulations on that. Jameson, you should be entering our weekly NFL pick. I mean, you could have won $2,000. Just saying.